It is justifying the budget.
Yeah, no, 5 million now.
Yeah.
Just notify second on.
How are you? Well, nice to see you. So we are having our meeting before you are having technical difficulties. We're having technical difficulties. Well, it's not only right.
So the
Yes, that. Sorry. There's a lot of okay, I'm going to, first of all, I'd like to recognize that we have, Councilwoman Graves with us, please join us. The owl is not working. So that means that everybody is going to basically have to speak very loudly and very clearly because we are, just in case anyone's watching, but this is also being recorded. So if everyone can be extra loud, that would be great. Okay, Madam Clerk, we have just done a motion to take item number 4 out of order. If you could please read that item number 4 into record.
Item 4, an ordinance amending chapter 21, Lebanon Fines of the Province Code of Ordinances to add Article 19, Province April of Police Stations.
Okay, and my understanding is that there is a substitute that we will distribute right now. So while we're distributing that section, we'll see what it is. Okay, so there are two small changes. As you will see in section 21-314 eligible properties. We have in subsection 2 the addition of the word initial qualifying. And then we also had a change to section 21-316 procedures, subsection 2, crossed out the words to view taxes capital. So we will have some presentation on why the changes were made in addition to a presentation on this ordinance, but I would like a motion to substitute this. I have a motion. So good. Okay, a motion made by Councilor Engelbach, seconded by Councilor Frey, all in favor, and I all opposed. So at this point, I would welcome, I think we have, Chris Brown and Moon Rose who will present. So if you would join us at the end of the table, I will swear you in.
Raise your right hand. Bear on the penalty of perjury, according about the business and truth of the whole truth and not from the truth. And please state your names and address.
And if you would just both start by just saying your titles, you know, for you all, be very hard work for the city council, but then for the record, and we could please say the title for our video.
Sure. June Rose, Chief of Staff, City Council.
Christina Brown, Speaker Advisor, and City Council.
Okay, and don't forget to keep your voices up, but please proceed.
Thank you, Chairwoman and councilors, for taking up such an important and timely ordinance. I want to start by quoting a February 8th Boston Globe article that really sums up the urgency of this legislation. Developers have started to realize that they can get the tax treatment even if only a portion of the apartments are affordable. Mayor Smiley said in an interview with the Globe, a departure from how the law was historically utilized. Word has spread quickly, Smiley said. This quote is spot on. This very moment, developers are using a tax treatment that is intended to incentivize low-income housing development. In the middle of a housing crisis, this ordinance makes genuinely low-income units possible. For anyone to take advantage of that to build market rate, luxury, or commercial units is clearly against the spirit of the law, whose formal title is actually Qualifying Low-Income Housing Assessment and Taxation. And in the opinion of the City Council, it is illegal under the current rate law. But clearly, we need a local ordinance that is as explicit as possible that the 8% tax treatment applies exclusively to low-income units. And this ordinance clearly defines what we mean by low income. We do that here by defining it to be where tenant households make 80% or less of the area median income, and where the rent is restricted to no more than 30% of their income. This ordinance also establishes reasonable oversight, checks and balances to ensure that the program is run fairly in the best interests of the city of Providence and of our low-income residents. By offering this preferential tax treatment, this council is helping developers build genuinely low-income housing while being responsible stewards of the taxpayer dollar. I'm now going to turn it over to Senior Advisor Chris Brown, who can walk us through some of the specifics in the ordinance.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Cheryl, and members of the committee. So as June already alluded to, one of the major points of clarification in the ordinance put forth is defining for the city what we see as low-income housing. That is a known loophole in the state law, and it is allowed by state law for local municipalities to apply it the way that they see benefit for their communities. Low-income housing, as we put forth, is housing that is affordable to households earning 80% of AMI or below. And affordable by the federal definitions means the rent is 30% of that household's income. In addition to that, we define what an eligible property is and what an eligible share of the property is. So as we all know, the 8 law in Providence, or the 8% tax treatment, has been applied to entire buildings, including commercial and market rate. In the ordinance, we make it very clear that commercial units and non-restricted residential units or market rate units are not applicable to receive the 8% tax treatment. In addition to that, we outlined some details about the application process, about the reporting process back to the council. And so some of those key things, I just go through it before I go through the substitution. Under the procedures section, the tax assessor will promulgate written rules and regulations, but we are also requesting, in addition, or part of their rules and regulations have to include the gross potential rent from the qualified loans agreement to the new property, the monthly rent of each unit, a fully completed HUD, it's called the 92458 form, or the rent schedule yellow rent housing form. This is a common form that most low income or restricted affordable housing developments already have to fill out. So we are requiring that, or the equivalent for properties that don't use that form. Copy of the restricted covenant, and the annual income of the tenant households, to ensure that these are units serving low-income households. In addition, we are requesting that the tax assessor submit an annual report on the developments receiving 8 law treatment, or the 8% tax treatment, to the city council and the internal audit by September 15th annually. We are also requiring that for any application that has been received by the tax assessor, the council gets notified within 10 business days of receipt of that application. And for those applications that are approved, the council receives notification within 10 business days. We've also included a revocation section that makes it clear to eligible properties that if they do not submit the required documentation to receive the preferential tax treatment within 30 days of the March 15th deadline, the tax treatment will be revoked. For the 2 substitutions tonight, the first one was on section 21.342 under eligible properties. There's a minor change to section 2, which now says that eligible properties need to have a covenant recorded in the land records in favor of the governmental unit or the Rhode Island Housing Mortgage and Finance Corporation, restricting the rents charged to the tenants of the property to an amount that, together with heat, utilities, or other than telephone, constitutes no more than 30% of the gross annual household income in the household, with 80% or area median income, and restricting the initial qualifying incomes for the tenant households to earning 80% AMI, or less of area median income adjusted with family size. So the inclusion of initial qualifying is to be aligned with how subsidized housing already exists. So the Department of Housing and Urban Development qualifies restrictions based on the initial income of that household. The majority of developments that would qualify under this ordinance. There is room in these programs for low-income households to increase their income while living in subsidized and deed-restricted units. Most of these units fall under what is called the low-income housing tax credit program, or LIHTC. And that restricts majority of the units to 60% AMI or below. And so what you see is that they had initially restricted or qualified for the unit at 60%. HUD does allow them to increase their income while they are living in those units to be able to move on from those units and make those units available for other low-income households. And so that was a change we made to make sure we're not inadvertently causing a cliff effect where people would have to be evicted based on these requirements. And the second change tonight is under procedures, so section 21-316. Section 2. The change was made to strike out to the tax assessor by March 15th of each year. This change was made requested by the president.
Yes, please, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Christina and Jimmy, so much for that overview. So, 21-316-1, asks the tax assessor, actually requires that the tax assessor create, rules and regulations for how this ordinance will be enacted, right? Including, the application process. We give a framework that is already laid out on what kind of information we need to collect in an application process. But we're really looking to partner with the assessor in the best kind of process and procedure. And so by striking this to the tax assessor in section 2, we're basically referring back to the rules that the tax assessor is going to create and we're going to pass, right? So it just creates a little bit more freedom, which was the original intention of the thing, and I think is a good, you know, half of it.
Okay. No, I think just add, so the March 15th date is currently under Rhode Island General Law 45-15. Rhode Island Housing is required to report on all properties in the state that receive the 8% tax treatment annually, and they do that by March 15th. So that aligns with the already established state schedule.
Okay. Is that the end of that presentation? The only question I have is, I just thought you might talk about who the stakeholders you consulted in drafting this, and whether we have any letters of approval or make recommendation, any letters in support, whether it's an approval or whether it's not support from the stakeholders, some of the stakeholders you consult.
So we consulted with Rhode Island Housing, which is the obviously the mortgage and financing agency that underwrites and finances and runs the housing tax credit program in the state and finances and reports on 105 of these properties for the city of Providence, within the city of Providence. We also consulted with the Housing Network of Rhode Island, which is a trade association for all the community development corporations. We met with the tax assessor.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up for any questions from our committee members. Yes, Council Williams.
My question would be, it's struck out to the tax assessor, but we have a space we have buying my 15. Is it gonna be filled in by with the housing because it's already standards with them? Is that what we're going to pursue with it?
Yeah, so the intention here is to refer to the rules that are created in MERP. So, however, the rules that are created in MERP by the tax assessor and with approval by the council.
So we don't need
exactly. But I think certainly having a third party verify your review possible and we want to set. Hey, question, so it's Councilor Randall. I have just a quick comment, and that's to the thing between and Chris, for the amount of work you're going to do today, I think probably so many folks, it's quite a labor of effort to get it right, even though it's, I really appreciate how much work went into this to get it. Sure. Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, thank you, Jim, thank you, Chris. My question is on the initial qualifying amendment. I mean, I think I need a better understanding of how it works, because my understanding, their AMI percentages are pretty strict. Is there a max cap that a tenant can receive in income for that to revoke the application of it?
Well, we are putting in a cap of 80% every week. But the changes to make sure that the tenant households is not, so whatever is initially qualified, because we are asking for an annual reporting process. That if that number changes over the years, the property is still eligible.
We don't want to be in a situation where the city has to evict someone who, for example, was at 70% AMI when they applied for this apartment, and now is at 85 or 90% AMI, which that person is not in a place where they can go live in a luxury apartment. So we just don't want them to be kicked out for that. These are rare situations where people are climbing far out. Obviously, it's much less so, but it's a rare situation that's sometimes far out. So much more common would be, someone moving in 75 to 81%. That person shouldn't lose their home. I think most people would agree. And so without that, someone who's in that close range, post age is at risk of eviction, and making sure that, as long as when you come in, you're qualifying for low-income housing, you can stay. And I think a lot of the time it's on where to price far out of that original qualifying income, they would then go and look for another, right? But they're not trying to push this.
So for instance, HUD has a family self-sufficiency program where they allow households to grow their income while staying in basically rent fixed apartments. And that program is to help them reach their financial goals, potentially to buy a home or to move out of that apartment. So I guess the change here is to make sure that we're not being too stringent on that income requirement, the household income requirement.
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, so just for my clarity and further understanding. So say someone is at 70% AMI this year, they run into an opportunity, they will double their household income, it's 140 AMI the next year. Well, how would we find out about that? Like, is there any mechanisms and ordinance and reporting of it to make sure that that is for someone that's closer to that 80%? My questions don't make sense.
No, it's once again, that's a really rare situation when someone's 70% and minus doubling their income. In that situation, that person is not going to be evicted from their apartment, but when they leave, the next person who comes in is going to have to be under 80%, and they'll reflect that and be 30% of that, more than 30% of that person's.
Hey, yes, Councilor Vargas.
Thank you. So going back to the question of they say this person did a great job, great education, now he's over an 80%, right? What about the apartment? We qualify for the AO, or we don't be disqualified for the person reach the 80%?
That's right. That person would still qualify in that exact apartment. They wouldn't be able to move into any other apartment now that they've priced out. But this ordinance would limit that from.
What about the apartment, what about the apartment? Is still under the ADO or is going to be required by the apartment because the tenant is making more money than?
Still qualifies for it.
Because it's still a deed restricted unit. So. How the programs work is that they restrict the rents and the household incomes to make affordable units permanent, right? Usually 30 years, deed restriction. The changes to keep that unit under the 8%, knowing that person would be moving on with the program. They don't stay in that unit. If in terms of Sanchez's scenario, they jumped up to 140% AMI. They would no longer be eligible for that unit, but they might be currently in that unit when the reform is through.
Do I have a follow-up for you? Or should I go to the council favor law? And then I'll go back to you, Councilman.
Yeah, it's more, I guess, a question or a comment than a question, but I'm just saying, I think that makes sense, to answer this. Part of me had the same question, and then others, like, if they do suddenly move up to the commercial rate, that then would be 100% of their tax connect to do it, because they want to keep it 100%. So it's not that like, we're protecting, it prevents the eviction by keeping it at 8%, and if they're at 85, so what the eviction is, it's amazing, they're probably gonna be looking for a nicer apartment. Like, no offense, but like, this is, if you're out this in this apartment, if I have the nicest, it's not gonna be the nicest apartment, like, you're gonna be like, oh, I suddenly make $100,000 a year, I'm gonna look for a new place, like, maybe all, not, that's probably their situation, but like, I don't think the city, I know I would want to be the business of like passing it in the big by accident.
So, yeah, and this is a strong recommendation from Burnham Hopkins in the city department. It's something that they wanted to ensure that there wasn't by some means a way to evict tenants for having an absolute.
Yes, Councilor Vargas.
Thank you very much. So, going back, so that's why we have a lease. So would be a lease for 1 year under the ADO for this particular tenant. So in a year, we want to review this person's making over 80%. So he won't be able to qualify to rent this apartment again because he already passed. So he has to move on and then we keep the building for this particular apartment under the ADO for the future tenant, right? That's what we're trying to do. So that's why we have to figure out how we're going to do this out. Will be 1 year, 2 years, but.
So,
Yes, yes.
so the city, I think, is not trying to get inside, on the deep level, inside the individual leases between each tenant, and the building owner. I think, for those of us with lived experience, or those of us who work, with people who are experiencing poverty, one thing that happens pretty frequently, very unfortunately, is that people start earning a little bit more, just a little bit more, and suddenly they are cut off from all kinds of subsidy, including child support and childcare support and affordability in housing. And what that does is it creates this kind of like middle tier where, we might have been maybe barely getting by for a period of time with subsidies. All of a sudden, we're essentially earning less, even though we're earning more. Because now we have to pay for childcare, we have to pay for full, we have to go and find an unsubsidized apartment. And so there's this real like lapse, that affects many, many people who live in our city. And so this change is an attempt to just make sure that that cliff doesn't come for people who are in units that are getting 8% off, so that you're not jumping off that cliff with nowhere to go, and essentially worse off than when you were making a little less money.
that answer your question?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes,
No, I was just gonna add that, having been in that situation. What happens is, you still gotta pay 30% of whatever they're making. So. That jump that you think you made, you really didn't, because you gotta pay 30% of that, double that money that you. And then, like she said, there's other things that come into play that you are no longer eligible for. The education of the child would be part of it, like since they can all that other stuff. And if we dump them or tell them they have to leave, you usually gotta go find a place and you're gonna have to pay the security and the first month's rent, and so we end up plunging them back and where they can't either they can't afford to feed the kids because they're not getting subsidies there. They can't afford to pay for childcare now that they're struggling, so that you're making them worse off. So I've seen people quit jobs because they could not afford this good job that they got. Because now they're really suffering and their kids are really suffering. So they might as well just say, you know what? I don't even want this job. It's not worth it to me and my family. Because if I gotta feed my parents. I gotta make sure that the food they have. And it's easier for me to stay here. There's been a lot of people, especially in public housing, that had to do that. You know, they didn't take good jobs to stay in house because they knew what they did. They're out, and now I'm thinking, so I understand, I've lived that.
yes, work time.
Just a couple of questions. So there are those scenarios. We do these regulations. Get a line where. The person exceeds, while receiving the exemption, and they get the job and they make, let's say 85%. Can be developed, can be under this law, can another apartment be available in the April subsidy be applied to that apartment? If the person is moved out, and doesn't have to move out of the apartment?
Yeah, so you need to say they have market rate, units, and then now they want a lot, they want to change one of those units.
Right,
They also,
they
they can make the rest of their permits, they can have as many. As long as they're, the rest of the permits, or if it's one apartment, they move it below, 8% income restriction, and then, yeah.
so it's just swapping.
The 8% can only apply to the deed restricted units.
They can.
So if a unit comes off of the deed restriction, that unit is no longer part of the calculation. And whether or not a developer wants to for another unit, it's with their individual.
They're allowed to be these laws.
It's all with reporting and.
Yeah, and the needs of the. The other question I had is in reference to the March 15 report each year, indicated that the state law, state reports. It's for March 15. That they have to report, so we have to provide their information to the state. And when you reference the Rhode Island law based on this date. Is that just a reporting deadline, or that they have to report to gather all the information reported on forward?
So all municipalities have to submit to the state by January 15th of each year, and the report is given. Submit the tax payments made by affordable housing departments.
What date?
January 15th.
January 15th. And so
The reporting would already be collected, reporting becomes public on March 15th, so all of it.
March 15th is the deadline for the property owners to submit their petition to tax assessor, to whomever in the rules would be managing that process. Yeah.
Council President.
Is that a gentleman already used by the city of Providence?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so. That's, it's just kind of finding a procedure that's already in place. Relative to,
Yes, yeah, that's something that's actually.
It does establish. And,
fine.
right, but does it give enough time for the employees that they're working to? They'll stand now, in terms of something that will go nothing. So, is it?
Yeah.
Changes?
Council President.
I believe that, Mr. Theory can ask a question.
I'm hoping that we're going to have clarity on what is existing, what is happening now. From the assessor, when we asked them to come up and testify.
Developing this ordinance, no one reported to us that that deadline itself is an issue, so that never came up. Or this is, yeah, let's see.
All right, any questions, comments right now to our presenters? Okay,
I have one.
yes.
They're talking about this January and March, doesn't say they all supersedes our ordinance.
I haven't looked at the ordinance to talk about preemption.
Well, it's kind of like going back to residency we had in the city. We didn't have it in our ordinance that live in the city. The state went and said, no, you don't have to live in the city anymore. They trump our ordinance.
That's the statute that
So
says.
we have, if we have March, they have January, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, I don't know if we reviewed it. I'm not sure if any of it.
And I'm not sure we're talking about this. It's all of
We're
it.
talking about state law versus.
Well, we are.
You're talking about reporting as opposed to.
The tax assessor will be able to. discuss that. Yeah, so this is not a change to that.
We have to get the dates.
Yes, Council President.
Thank you, I'm sorry, just to be clear, January 15th has nothing to do with this ordinance. At all, right, so this is a separate. This is a state law, that's just talking about data. So it literally reads, this report shall include data aggregated by all municipalities and disaggregated by each individual municipality on the total amount of fees collected in the previous calendar year. It's a reporting requirement based on or low income. It's really not, I'm not sure where it's running into the discussion tonight. Sorry, so we're talking about, this ordinance is just about reporting for our own taxation laws. This is the data collection of the year previous. The state laws. I'm genuinely.
Okay.
I'm only bringing it up because something the shadow asked. And it came from January to March, so.
I appreciate that, but I think we'll have clarification from our tax assessor on what those states are. And I don't think you're gonna find that they're, I'm not sure, but we'll save that question. And you can ask it again, when we have one more clarification on our taxes.
I just want to apologize for confusing that. And housing state law reporting follows this section.
Okay, any more questions or comments right now? This is completely fine of our presenters. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we also have of our city administration, and I think you've received letters. We will not, I think we did probably. But we have our, we have Sarah's area, we have Freeman, we have Denise Hospitality. Do you all want to come up and is that who our team is that's presenting on your end? Okay. We can swear you in. Put your right hands. You fear and it's pretty good at continuing about the games with the whole through the and the beginning of the Sarah area, I mean, Chinese hospitality cities has freedom of cancer. Thank you so much. We do have a few written remarks as exhibits the letters that we received by email today. Is that what you're planning to do?
Yeah, I have copies of, the point on that.
Okay. All right, let's mark the fiscal note as number one, they have a motion. Okay, motion made by Councilor Sanchez, seconded by Councilor Gray, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's exhibit one, we also have. If you want to present this first, or can they mark already?
Mark on the
Okay. All right, we have them from Emily Friedman.
And give us an additional letter from Department of Housing and Human Services.
Thank you. We will have Martha as exhibit number two. And we have a motion. I have a second. Second, okay, motion made by Councilor Sanchez, seconded by Councilor Gray, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, and then we have the final, yes. Okay, and that is going to be marked as exhibit number three, may I have a motion?
So,
May I have a second? Right, motion made by Councilor Sanchez, seconded by Councilor Ingersoll. All in favor? All opposed? Wonderful. Well, we have third. Now, do we have the third letter? Everything now. Um. Who would like to present first?
I would like to be on there.
I just did. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, all right.
It's all right. Yeah, that's fine. We will start with,
Thank you for having us. Joined today by, Director Friedman, our Director of Housing and, Human Services, and also our tax assessor, Chief Muscatelli. And we are here just to, I would present our fiscal note, fiscal analysis that we put together on this ordinance, and then directors, Muscatelli and Friedman are going to talk a little bit about their concerns and some issues that they would like to see bring up and clarify. As proposed, the ordinance creating section 21-316 article 24, I'm sorry, 14 of the part ordinances entitled Providence are qualifications, operating procedures of the application of Rhode Island General Law, section 44-5-13, 11 to property in the city. These procedures will have a fiscal impact of $548,651 on the province's general fund budget. There are currently 7,500 units presently eligible for the April opportunity that under the proposed ordinances will need to be reviewed annually. To meet the requirement for annual documentation from AL property owners, the Department of Housing and Human Services will need to hire at least 3 compliance and monitoring officers. Each compliance and monitoring officer will be responsible for reviewing thousands of submitted records to ensure that requirements are met. And the estimated cost to that is $255,909. In addition to the compliance officers described above, the assessment office will need to hire a senior clerk to comply with the requirement to submit within 10 business days of receipt of application for ALOC. The officers use over 600 such applications per year and will require a dedicated staff person to collect and remit copies to the internal auditor as they are received. Estimated cost for this employee is $79,750. The addition of records related to the 7,500 presently identified each law creates a new cache of records containing information subject to ABRA request. When requested by the public, each file will need to be reviewed and redacted by an attorney in the law department. These files will or could contain extensive personal data, including tax returns, social security numbers, dependents, and dependents. The law department will need an additional attorney on staff to replace the data not released to the public while ensuring the transparency. That we have revenue of our city. Estimated costs $114,990. In order for the city to accept and securely store the annual filing, software will need to be acquired and implemented. A secure portal will have to be established to allow really owners to submit and report applications. The city will also have to safely and securely store this information to ensure that the data is not available to anyone outside the process. Estimated cost for this is $100,000. And in closing, the passage of this ordinance would increase the annual general fund budget by $548,651. This estimate is so far is not been included in the budget for fiscal year 2025. And you know, we're all aware that the fiscal 25 budget is a lot different than the 24 budget. We no longer have those federal ARPA dollars in our budget. That was a loss of $11,500,000 for the fiscal 25 budget. So we are just expecting respectfully, if we could perhaps continue this matter even a week so that we work collaboratively on some amendments to this.
I appreciate your testimony, Director. I just have a question. So we currently have what 618 properties receiving a tax treatment. Does this will now represent what we already spend? Or does it project that we will have an additional 600 properties applying for this treatment? I just need to know what, yeah.
This is add a card. So this would be no new properties from the current roster.
No new properties.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So this, what are we incurring right now to process our?
Well, these are new procedures and policies that we have to put in place, and this is the cost of the new
procedures. Okay, all right. And can you explain what it is you want from the current properties to?
I will defer to our country, which she provides for testimony on that.
All right, before does anyone want to ask her? We can wait until we have the whole presentation, or does anyone want to ask a clarifying question? Or yes, Councilor Sanchez.
So is this will go have anything to do with like the second amendment that we changed?
We have not, we didn't see the amendment until this evening, so we haven't been able to review those amendments, but from just previously looking at it, that it doesn't seem to change anything. You might as well know.
I think we need to discuss that. I think we need to discuss that and ask follow-up questions. So thank you for that question. Let's something else to answer that right now. Okay. All right, no one wants to answer it yet. All right.
Just following up. So is there any, I think you might have answered, but is there any properties that are in the queue of one call or right now that you say, okay, within the next month, 2 months, 5 months, 6 months, a year, that they're gonna be final paid? We have that. Is there any?
Alberta,
Really,
you're asking if I know of any that may.
Yeah,
submit
and that-
applications?
yeah.
I don't have a total of that. I know that we get occasional email requests, or we asking questions about how to apply, but we don't keep track of
I'm not banging on the door to say, hey,
No,
looking good.
no.
Okay, just because my question through this whole process is my personal opinion of what I'm record of the deal that we're writing. That's just my personal opinion. Because
I think
we're the council known as transparency and this field that we're not having a public hearing on. So I think we should let well, then just want to put that on.
Oh, okay. Can we ask for it?
There's gonna be behind the screen, that's money, but it's all right.
Okay.
The extension office is doing single half of the city's water revenue. It's important to know that any function within the separate office is based upon salaries which are valid as it is under. With a staff of 15, including director level positions, we need to see 44,000 no state property records and 5,000 tangible business accounts.
Our office has daily interactions with nearly every department throughout the city to ensure that each property is fairly and equitably valued. This includes updating ownership, monitoring permit activity, as well as conducting in-person inspections of properties on a daily basis. This office is also responsible for executing the city council stabilization ordinances, managing the city's pilot programs, and implementing the tax calculation for properties which are qualified to receive treatment under the Island General Laws 45-5-13-11, commonly known as APOR. Currently, there are 620 properties in which APOR applies. These properties are comprised of nearly 7,500 individual units. Each property has already completed its initial qualification as required by state statute. Namely, each property has established that it, one, substantially rehabilitated or newly constructed as defined by HUD. Two, received certificate of occupancy issued on or after January 1st of 1995. Three, have restricted covenants recorded in evidence in favor of the governing body over eligible finance. Once evidence of these three criteria has been presented to the office of the assessor's role is to calculate the tax payment based on the reported gross potential rental income. On an annual basis, an application is mailed requesting that each property submit the year-end record, including their certification of their compliance by the restricting agency. For many units, the restricting agency is Rhode Island. The proposed amended ordinance seeks to add additional compliance measures with the assessor's office has neither their expertise nor capacity to properly implement. Those compliance measures should instead be managed by the Department of Housing and Community Development. If the assessor's office were required to implement these compliance measures, it would require hiring at least 3 additional compliance monitors. Section 21-316, number 2 of the proposed ordinance requires that the tenant's annual income be reported to the assessor. This requirement is not integral to calculating the effective tax bill under April. The assessor's office does not have the space nor security measures to store this very sensitive information. The city won't even secure a submission portal in secure document storage. Section 21-317 of the proposed ordinance covering reporting and notification requires an annual report to be provided to the city council and internal auditor. The requirement to include the area median income of each unit should be provided by the city's Department of Housing and Community Services. Included in this section is a required notification of applications to the internal auditor to be provided within 10 days of receipt and again upon approval. Providing an estimated 620 applications within 10 days of receipt will require an additional senior clerk dedicated to this task mission along with portal and secure document storage. In closing, the proposed amendments would require additional dedicated staff to manage the responsibilities and oversight requirements. I'm here today to ask the committee to consider continuing this item to allow time for additional research and collaboration into further study the fiscal impact of this ordinance. Thank you.
I just have a quick question. So I'm just looking at the 3 additional compliance monitors. So what additional compliance do you have to do beyond what you're doing currently?
Based off of what the ordinance currently reads, it's asking that the office also maintain the data of each tenant who is the so that means I would also have to now start compiling that information.
Maybe I can be, because I really do maybe want to listen to the presentation, then I would love to know exactly what the process is currently that we have, which would be very helpful. And how you see the additional, requirements based on the proposed ordinance. So, record agreement. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, you want to, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Denise, if you could just walk me through the How does one get approval for the 8%? Preferential tax treatment now?
Now they would submit an application to the office and then they do restriction, the proof of rehabilitation or the construction. And their annual rental potentially.
So who authorizes the initial application?
I do.
Just you, the tax assessor?
I have directors that also work on the initial application.
What is the current process to certify?
Annually, we send out an application to each property that we have already qualified to be on the 8% program. We ask them to submit their application to us by January 31st, no later than March 15th. A certified application along with their rental and a document of compliance from the agency that restricts that property.
If Brown Housing is not involved to certify the income, who does that? Does Brown Housing have to be involved in everyone?
Most of them are restricted by Rhode housing, but we reach out to the property owner, we put the onus on them, they need to submit to us in their conclusion that says they're in compliance with whichever agency is providing the restrictions for their.
And last one I guess is, how is this ordinance that we want to put in different from the one that we're at?
How is it different? It's asking now that we compile the tenant's annual income. And it's asking for a more detailed reporting to the city council and the internal work. So
Will that be for the current 620 that already get it, or for the minutes?
that's what it implies.
For past and very.
Yes, that's what it.
All right. Check it.
Just follow up on council detail, you also said there were other directors that helped with the application to which director?
I have an assistant, inspector, that is a director level position as well as a deputy, city officer.
Okay, all within your department.
Yes.
I got one.
Yes, that's a, text you know.
So I know you mentioned that you'd like to see it continue. What would be a fair timeline, I guess, for you? Maybe if we were to pass this, you could say, okay, 6 months a year. To get, not including the money wise, for you as far as the tax assessment in your office.
I'm asking for it to be continued so that we can work more collaboratively to understand the needs and not ask of the city council. Really amendments here. This means that there is some information that maybe where this interpreting, or maybe it's not clearly communicated in the language in the amendments. Because from what I understand that they're looking for some oversight and compliance, but it seems to be done through the channel of the assessor's office, and we really have compliance agents within my department. We pursue ones. We obviously ensure that those applicants have met the compliance, but we don't oversee the compliance.
When this ordinance, sorry,
Please.
when this ordinance came out, were you asked questions about it, or kind of like, you kind of sort of today, so okay, you get it on today? I mean, I'm trying to get a timeline of when you actually saw this, and was it spoken to you when you say, you know what, we need to continue this from day one, or you know what I mean?
I did have a conversation, a few weeks back. There was a rough draft. And I did voice my concerns then with some of the reporting requirements, but none of this final version wasn't brought to my attention until Friday.
This past Friday? Okay. But still going back to, what do you think would be a timeline that we could say that, okay, if we continue, say tonight we vote, we continue. what would you be looking for as far as the timeline? For your office?
It's not just for my office, I think it's a collaboration between the city council, the internal auditor, the finance director, myself. And, the director, housing, to really sit down and discuss what the needs and wants are. So. I don't have a time frame, but I'm not saying 6 months out, maybe a week or 2 weeks, if we could all. Get around this table and really work out the meeting. For at least the reporting and stuff, the compliance is excited.
I don't think that's unreasonable. Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, Councilor Anderson, thank you. We're gonna generally have questions, yeah, but I don't mind that people know it's incorporated in you. I just didn't know if we had some overlap between. Yeah. And our testing, but, thank you so much, and I know we'll help regulations. I guess my question is, given the section 21-316 procedures, which is covering taxes like accommodating the regulations. Like, couldn't the rules, how did the rules regulations say? I guess to amend the here, which was that to the fact that it could say this all goes to elevate. And so then it avoids this conflict and like having all the year, which is what I'm hearing the issue is. So I'm just wondering, like, it's only asking you to make it rules and regulations, it's not saying that everything that all the compliance is we should be making the rules and regulations, we could say. Sarah, thank you. Which probably isn't a big time, but.
I think that's what you're saying, it doesn't change the cost, necessarily.
Oh, it wasn't much about cost, it's like a process, I have more questions on the cost a little bit, but just the process here, that's.
And I think Director Friedman, you probably clear some of that up in her, in the testimony. I have good questions. I just want to make one comment, I want to find, most of the items listed here should be reported to the assessment.
Okay.
With the exception of the tenant in.
Thank you. Okay. All right, any other questions? I mean, we're going to put councils, right? The council
Peter, quick clarifying, but I want to push on one that was already asked. You had mentioned that Rhode Island Housing is one of these certificates that need to be signed off on, but you mentioned that there are other entities. What other entities are? Okay. I'm not saying just. The only other entity would be. I want to know if there's other agencies that we need to include in this conversation, or even just be aware of. You haven't had Rhode Island Housing.
I think directly speaking, okay, that's great.
Can you start by answering that specific question? And we'll let you present.
Thank you.
How would that be?
So I think as we all, good evening, everyone, when previous directors housing services, I think as we know, for many affordable housing projects, there are capital staff that enables these projects to move forward as a number of funders, many of whom are governed by federal regulations. The city, for example, is often providing our federal home dollars into these projects. Of the 8 law portfolio, probably 200 of the properties have city home or some other type of city restriction. And so all of these various funders have monitoring requirements. That said, they are not all the same monitoring requirements, and they're not all on the same schedule. So I would echo my colleagues' feedback that, unfortunately, with only a few days' notice, this has not been sufficient amount of time to consider those various layers of monitoring requirements and schedule. And we want to ensure that we are not creating duplicative processes that if we feel that we are missing the mark or there's a gap in our monitoring system on these affordable units that we have budgeted for FY25 appropriately to help address that. We've simply not had enough time to do that. So we do ask for additional consideration. That said, the A-law tax treatment, I think we all recognize, is a critical tool to enable the development of affordable housing and preservation of affordable housing. The net operating income of these projects dictates how much financing you get for a project, how much you can go out and borrow from a bank to construct a project, and then how much public subsidy you need to construct the project. That to enable that project to be financially viable through a long-term compliance period. So Housing and Human Services and the administration are in agreement with the council that the applicability and criteria for the law
must be clarified and affirmed. This is evidenced by the fact that we have had for the last few months an interdepartmental and interagency team that has been crafting recommendations to develop statewide legislative amendments that were just introduced this session. So those amendments that we have put forth include clarifying the applicability of the tax treatment solely to low and moderate income housing units. Clarify the ability of the tax assessor to apportion the tax treatment to affordable units within a mixed income or mixed use development. Expressly clarify and expand applicability to new construction projects. And then empower municipal tax assessors to promulgate written procedures regarding how property owners can avail themselves and apply for a law in accordance with state law. And I believe we're in alignment that written procedures need to be developed and perhaps fleshed out further, but we do need additional time, as we've mentioned, and ability to consult to ensure that we are as close to the cost and goal as possible in terms of the administration of any changes that are being proposed. Additionally, some of the conversation tonight also highlighted an additional question that I think will need consideration, which is we are seeking to apportion the tax treatment. What happens to in the situation that a pro temp was discussing, which is that there are many times deed restrictions that allow for loading units to shift within a development for that exact reason. Because if someone does go over income, they do not have tenure in that apartment long term under federal regulation. So I want to clarify that point, that when we are monitoring the home program, we actually set up loading units so that if someone goes over income, they can be shifted elsewhere in the development. But that will perhaps, if we're talking about apportioning the tax treatment, create a very tough situation that we need to be thinking through all of these scenarios to ensure that we are not inadvertently coming out of compliance with the federal subsidies that we receive to develop. So this is a very complex issue, and we again need additional time to vet it.
Okay, questions? Yes.
Go back to the, I know you heard, you would probably know this more than many of you kind of answer. About the 80%, we exceed, when we exceed the 80%, how do we do that now?
So I can speak to the city home program, which actually capsizes at either 60% AMI or 50%. There are different federal regulations. If you go over income, if you are in what's called a low home unit, the 50% AMI unit, and there's different federal regulations if you are go over income and a 60% AMI. So it's very complex, and I want to give everyone here a migraine, but what will end up happening effectively will be prescribed by federal regulation. So we as monitoring agents have to ensure that the property owner has appropriate procedures in place to account for those things happening, because they're it varies by program, but typically you do not get a lifetime tenure even if you are over. You have to comply with the requirements.
So they can get convicted if they go over the script. Say someone that's illegal on more than 80%, say they're at 70%. Like everyone said, if they're getting more money, a better job, or raise or whatever, now they're at 85%. Can they stay, how long could they stay at 85% before the city would step in and say?
It varies by program. Typically in the home program, what we do is strategically set the home units to float in a development as opposed to being fixed. And when they float, simply this person will, the unit will get redesignated as under the deed structure.
So someone under 80%.
Yes.
What would happen to that person being gone?
So they are able to remain if there are market units designated. So effectively, you never want to fully subsidize across the home, and you want to have that ability to move around use control. So we have to be thinking through based on this conversation here tonight, what that would mean in terms of state law treatment. You have lower income.
I'm sorry.
No, please.
Have you seen my scenario
Yes.
happen?
It
And
happens there. And that's why the default procedure at this point for both around housing home program and the city home program is to establish floating units that move within.
Who would step in first? Would it be the city or the house?
Typically, or both. Usually the developer themselves are very well versed and have these policies and procedures already.
Thank you.
Yes, I remember Bob. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the presentation, of your testimony. I have a couple of questions, I guess the first is in this, I was gonna say called the analysis, but I think it is, physical note. It doesn't take into account any, so I guess, I'm gonna start with a question, you know? I think part of the goal, correct me if I'm wrong, of changing this, is that there are many units currently in the law that we believe we should not use. They would then be like paying the commercial tax rate, which is quite a bit higher than 8%. This fiscal note doesn't include any of the potential benefits of getting those units off the tax rolls, and you have those numbers for the potential revenue this would be getting to offset some of these.
Yeah.
Questions.
No, but I didn't ask that part of the request of the continuance. We just got this on Friday, so I was able to do the expense analysis. The assessor has not been able to quantify something on the revenue side.
I just want to know that there's a wow. Yes, please. So this was publicly noticed last Tuesday. Is there a reason why you guys, oh yeah.
And it's my insurance, sorry.
Yes, please. It's fine.
A few conversations with, the administration, I don't know who individually, but I know we've shared with, the administration in a variety. So I'm sorry that, you know, it's, I'm sorry, but certainly there was a one for Saturday paying for, I think we were about 5 weeks, just to verify. I wasn't in the meeting, so someone wants to speak now, but yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. We engaged with the administration's team who provided suggestions, including some of the ones that the assessor is mentioning right now. We engaged directly with the assessor. I think probably we did not send that final draft brief before it went on the docket, but as soon as it was on the docket, they saw it, and that's right. That Tuesday, and we did engage directly.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I guess I had a few other questions. One is about the estimate for $100,000 for software security data collection storage. Can you talk a little bit more? That was a kind of my topic for me. Can you talk a little bit more about what that is and where that can come from?
Yeah, so I discussed this with the CIO. It would involve building a public facing online application to allow for permission and complex documents being shared back and forth. Whether it be the assessor or the housing department, that communication back and forth with the applicant or the building owner and our team. And then it would also include some sort of secure storage for all of the information component. That first year, if you had $100,000 going forward, it'd be about $20,000 a year just for annual maintenance.
What do we use currently in this maybe question for the city, but we already collected and store confidential data, so is this an addition to this security path, or are you thinking we need an entirely new system?
So we do have systems in place, but they're internal systems, so that would be the first like external exchange of that level of confidential information. So we do have it for internal exchange, but not for external.
Can I just add one more thing? So the external is to us.
The external between the filer, the outside filer to the city.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right. And I guess the other question, well, I have to do more, but one of the other questions I have is in hearing how the process is now based on council failure questions. I guess I didn't see, but with respect to like the crazy number of but like 3 people's worth of additional, because it just seems like we're just adding income to the list, or we're just adding a few things. We could, in the rules and regulations, potentially say this is the format and this is one the data. We need it in an Excel spreadsheet. We have formulas that like flag if something is above. I don't know, it just seems like 3 people seem quite excessive versus we're already hopefully monitoring this. to make sure that folks already aren't in the scenario we discussed before, where they're suddenly making $200,000, you're an 8% property, like, it just, that seems quite high for what we could design for what, I guess it's more of a comment, but for like how we could design requesting the invitation from the owners, since it didn't seem a ton more than we already have.
And that's why we would like additional time, because we can certainly put our expertise weigh in on how we might check this data without creating a burdensome system where we potentially be bringing on 1033s and compliance officers, because we do already have some staff who are doing this for other programs, and then there's certainly our staff around housing who are very adept at doing this work. And so could we think about accepting a signed certification with de-identified some summary report signed under penalty of perjury by the developer in lieu of getting people's tax returns, pay stubs, and then getting to income certified and monitor that, have it available for inspection or audit.
But I guess, thank you, that's really helpful. I guess isn't some of that allowed, like some of that, isn't some of that complication already allowed for in this, allowing the tax assessor to promulgate rules and regulations, but you didn't specifically spell out in the ordinance, like, you have to do all the very, very specific things to get the information that says, okay, you know, this can be complicated. Like, we're gonna let you guys figure out how best to do it, given that you know how, you know this is city, so we want this information. Like, you could do that, like, you need to have that described in the ordinance and plan ahead of time to do that, I think so. But yeah.
I think where it says it's challenge doing monthly rent of the lowest, the annual income have 20,000 occupation without income units. That's a challenge, so we have to be doing that.
So like how that happens, and what I'm hearing the question is, and like that, you go out for it, I guess it's more common. It feels to me like that is not something we need to pre-negotiate exactly how that's happening, but needing open space to have that kind of regulation process. I think it's a lot of how, like, I need to say, like, create the rules, not the year, figure that out. I don't have, so that's, but I guess the last one thing happens again is on this, keep on calling confidence, you know, I'm sorry, I'm learning DC, I mean, I can't say. It's like stuck in my brain, it's definitely not that. But sorry about that. Why do we think we're gonna have an entire city solicitor's worth of app requests? That's a lot of app requests.
Well, it's 7,500 case files, I'll have lots of documents in that, and I imagine that would be something that would be interesting to requesters. I worked with the law department and what they thought the workload would be to manage that, going through each of those files, having to redact everything every year, that file doubles. And I don't know, anything else.
I mean, I think right now we're at like 500 or something, but just with the sheet. And it's not your basic, collective bargaining agreement with local 1033, and others are more involved that require redacting, review, so. I wasn't the one who provided that estimate, and I don't do the app stuff, but some of them are rather intense.
Oh, yeah, I really now. Yeah, and then regulatory for a good minute. Okay, that's for students.
Just hold on for the last question. How many APRA requests have you received regarding a law this year?
I don't know. I can tell you just from the general number that I know, like 500 change for everything. I don't know it.
Okay, and then going back to, so how exactly are A-law applications stored right now?
We're currently stored just on our internal server.
Internal files.
Server.
So,
But they're not, they currently don't include any sensitive information.
so go back to, my colleague's point, with the amendment that we introduced at the beginning of the meeting, my understanding, we're going to kind of take care of most of the fiscal concerns, because with that point, they have full control to write the procedures, however they see fit, which I think it might make sense to keep doing things the way they're currently doing it by having outside agencies like Providence, I was doing all of the income verification. And they can store that sensitive information like they currently do. Now,
Council President, do you want to weigh in?
am I understanding?
Absolutely the intention. To create the possibility that, essentially codifying what is currently happening. Would be added, so. Right now. Somebody is verifying. Right, not the city necessarily, but it's part of the application procedure, right, there's an entity. For all of the ones that we consider like valid in the true spirit of each law, there's somebody verified. So this is just the intention is to codify that, right, that there's like a. That we can work collaboratively to create the processes, the rules are to make that happen. But by removing this like break to the assessor, I think that really does eliminate the need for just about everything on the system, right? Because we're saying, all of these pieces, most of which we already does, right? The potential rent, the monthly rent, the rent federal low rent housing, that form, the property restricted covenant, and then the addition of the annual income, right? That is documented as part of the application procedure. I think that we can work collaboratively, and I think we could work collaboratively to figure out how that's documented, and who's kind of the keeper of that information. But I think by removing that it's going to the assessor, right? We're removing the need for a whole new software monitoring and compliance. That, but.
Excuse me, if you remove, I haven't seen the individual, but if they're removing to the assessor, then who are they sending an application to?
So the application is still to the assessor, and we would work collaboratively on the filing rules. On that. We will work together on the rules of how that is, who is going to and how it's doing it.
But shouldn't that, in my opinion, be clearly defined within the amendment and not just remove who it should be reported to and just leave that space for your further determination? I'm just confused on why we're removing, because we're saying the property owners of eligible properties must send documentation step 4 in section 2131's 361. Each of the taxes says the by March 15th.
Yep.
So it's
So we're gonna step forward in section 2130 we're gonna actually accept that, the tax assessor shall promulgate written rules and regulations regarding our property owners neighborhoods down in section. All it's saying now, all part 2 is saying is the deadline for reason is March 15th. That's all it's saying. It's saying the tax assessor is gonna make the rules, and then annually, when you apply, you're gonna do that.
but the rules still include for the assessor to be responsible to compile tenants in no income.
The tax assessor, for the way it's written. The assessor is gonna, in fact, regular person, the tax. They have to, it's going to write out the rules, which certainly could include. The owner of the recycling, right, it also includes that there's a portion that the director of human services is responsible, right, and the deadline for the application annually is March 5th, right? That's really ultimately what we're saying. What we're saying here is codify what currently existing and strengthen so that it's crystal clear who is eligible for a law treatment and who is not. And that we, of course, will work collaboratively with each department. And I'm truly sorry that you weren't aware of that opportunity. Certainly the intention was through our communication to give them the various times that you would be. So I'm truly sorry in the morning. However, we still have this opportunity as this was written.
to do that together, to create, really step forward those initiatives. I do not think. I guess I have two thoughts, since we only got this amount of we have, you could just like time to Friday to today, right? We've had about an hour and a half to prep this document, but it is, there's two things I think we're all very green, so one of them. Counter antibody, which is, we don't know the price tag on income that we are currently for properties that are receiving a law that are for, 100% AMI or above, which is not low income, right? That's 100% by definition, is not low income. So we don't know the dollar amount that is in the end sales game. And two, I think I really appreciate the caution that's expressed in these three letters, but I think it's a misunderstanding of the first line, right? That says the tax assessor shall promulgate renewal. And I think it's, again, the intention was for there to be conversations, through the administration, and, certainly we still have the opportunity to do that in this process. Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Last question, and I think Oliver has some questions that I would be very interested in hearing those. How many A-law applications have been submitted to the city in the past 2 months?
I'm nearing the. I must by my 15 years now, so I have all 620 should have been reported.
So there hasn't been any new applications submitted, or did they only be submitted by in a certain period of time?
No, for a new application, I may receive those earlier on in the year, but they would still have to be certified by January 31st, ending December 31st. So in other words, if there was a new project that came on, it would have to be in service and fully rented out as of December 31st. In order for it to certify for the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, so the comments or the answers to my colleague Taylor's question were just like random inquiries about or questions about around that specifically like new applications.
I think Councilor Taylor was asking that.
My question was, how many are pending? In it right now, in other words, what's the rush? That's my question, what's the rush? Is it 10, 15, 20? Let's say if we don't do anything now, that they're gonna get in and then we're behind schedule.
You mean as far as brand new, not already on?
Not already on.
I don't believe I have any new books, please let me double check that, but it's definitely not an abundance, if there's one pending. I don't review them on a daily basis, I have my assistant staff to do that, so if you could just let me get back on that.
I really appreciate that. All right, we have Madam Auditor, I'm so sorry to recognize you, you're behind, like, all these people. Do you have any questions?
I just have one request, this is for the council. I am really urging you to eliminate the extension of that extra 30 days, because you will make that new deadline. April 15th, to defend the assessor. At that time, she's preparing the tax roll for the new budget year. If you're not going to penalize anybody, I honestly think that you should keep it at March 15th, or at least move it up to February 15th, and make the end date March 15th. Like we only had 15 people in there, and to do the tax roll, and we do ABLR, calculations, everything one of these, like you need to use, correct me if I'm wrong, I've done manually. We have to review every single one that comes in, see what their rent roll is, and do an 8% calculation on all. 600, but I have 19, but say it's 600, I believe you. So I really please consider shrinking that timeline, because I really think we're going to change the date. I went through a bunch that was submitted to me. There were already a handful that were late. A lot of the forms are incomplete. I knew which was a penalty if they're incomplete. Send them back. I don't think it's fair to the assessor that the city is giving this tax benefit, which is very good. And they're not completing the simple application that's being given. So again, I really wish you would consider within that thing, or at least doing a penalty if they're going to extend that fee. That's my thing. How are we, did we receive all of them on time this year?
I have no issue. I ran through the back of them. The system of it, so I want to check with her and see if she's had any strategies. I have to say, I want to say at least 90% of them are very good with sending on time and a few straggling after that. So we have contacts of every single project, so we run out of them, we ask them to submit, we work with them at the times, we have issues of we have our office, we know our work there, so we work through that, and for the majority, we do all of them.
Keep them on December 15th, because usually the waiting times have 90 days to report. Long time. Long time.
Any other comments?
Yes, I would really like to strengthen the role of the order in terms of going out and having the lawyers check directly, so I don't have to go to the assessor. She has a third party, even if I can have access to the third party to confirm things. It just gives another layer. I'm not saying my role is in the auditors. I won't be here forever, and you never know what the future will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have a third party, a personal third party.
No, I know. Whoever is confirming the,
Yes.
For any project where the city has provided federal subsidy, by all means, the auditor is welcome at any time to verify the records. And I'm sure we could potentially set up a relationship with perhaps helping, but they also would consider cooperating with projects.
Thank you. Yes.
I just a couple of questions. Currently, this is for currently the only compliant that you have is pretty much filing the report. You can see that
Currently, I do not submit anything to the city council. It is reported on my state, on my certification, is obviously the thing that everybody will look to see who's on the board. But yes, my role is to implement the calculation of it.
and then this obviously is ordinance we do that. Are there any anyone on compliance like you said, I think we'll have some late and so forth, do they have any recourse to appeal on state please?
I never didn't anybody, I do not remove anybody from people for not reporting. I will give them that one shot where I will take their annual rental from previous year and continue that same calculation going forward. And I will continue to work with them to ask them to submit the documentation needed going forward or up to date. That is not a huge issue within my department. I can think of even one property where I had that issue with, and it was rectified within that year. It was maybe somebody took, I forgot what the circumstance was behind it and why I didn't receive it. But I did not just remove them from ABAR, I just kept the calculation from the previous year, assuming that not changes year and income, and just continue forward with the calculation.
Maybe you think the process that was.
Yeah.
The subsidy.
Yeah.
And I know that now with the new creation of housing and you're going to use services, what's going to be your role on this? Do you foresee any other role with the assessor in terms of maybe this ordinance?
I think we are always looking.
Now we can clarify housing and
Sure. So we are always looking to find efficiencies in our work, and be good partners with other city departments. For example, I can testify to $100,000 quote for potential software, because that is something that we are also looking at. And certainly any system that Housing and Human Services sets up for the 200 plus properties that we have to monitor periodically, we would also seek to try and working a policy that makes sense. We, like I said, though, are on a slightly different monitoring schedule. We follow the budget schedule. So we need to have some time to sort of think through how we can be helpful here and figure out where changes and policies and procedures we're putting in place in Housing and Human Services would be helpful.
Yes.
And then,
go ahead, Pro Tem.
You mentioned that, say, propose some legislation, state us. It's clarifying the state law. There's been a lot of communication and conversation and us to be effective over it. Any conversations that we've had in policy cases to try to sort of narrow some of that or feedback?
To speak to that, I think.
What's the question? Exactly.
Liaison with policies in regards to the state reps.
I would go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, go ahead, and we'll swear in like.
I do. As far as having conversations with Christina, government, state legislation, to show that we collaborated closely on it. And then she was present and testified in the public commission. And so to the extent that collaboration that we have.
I'm sorry, Pro Tem, you have a specific question.
So I'm just trying to, I get it, in essence, Mike has to be legislative affairs support. In terms of now that you have housing piece, and this is critical, local level, but also looking at these type of ordinance, and how the applicability to the departments that you yourself, or with the assessors, really digging into, so that way when we come to the table, that we're not so misaligned. And particularly when it comes to, the budget items, increasing almost close to $550,000 for the impact that it has. So that's why I asked that much. At least that should have been discussed.
I think we can say we chose to work with an interdepartmental to address this on a state level. We're concerned that we need to be ensure that any policy at the city level is not preempted or in conflict with what ultimately will be statewide legislation law. And so that was the focus of our efforts. We only became aware, or I can say I only became aware of the ordinance being introduced as of last week.
Any other? Yes, Councilman Peterson, sorry.
Director, I think this question is geared towards you. When you touched on it a little bit. You mentioned that you're looking into software for data collection and storage. What are you currently using now?
Yeah, analog.
Can you clarify?
So right now, especially when it comes to tenant information or quickly and identifiable information, have very strict policies on how that information is shared between developers and the city. We effectively are doing this by mail and or by email back and forth on the city emails, for example.
But in terms of collection of data, personal information, things of that nature, is that also just like file folders in the file cabinet?
Yes.
Okay, so this is more of a comment. While I understand this fiscal bill seems alarming,
for me, I look at it a little bit differently. I actually think that it's time that we modernize quite a few of our services, and this is absolutely one of them. We talk often about we're gonna be the best run city. This is incentivizing us to do just that. There are many, many things that we should be doing to facilitate things, to make things easier for our constituents, regardless of who they are, where they come from, what they're doing. And this is just a step towards that. I am absolutely in support of making sure that we create systems and have software to be able to do something like that. Modernizing is absolutely what we should be doing. In terms of the salaries and things like that, compliance is always key. I think that that's absolutely important. I agree with many of the things that you said, Councilman, and how you refer and defer some of the information here. I just wanted to make sure that somebody's advocating for the modernization of our systems, because it is absolutely important and vital to our progress. Like I said, we are always talking about we want to be the best run city. We need to actually put them in. So that's just like 2 cents.
Okay, yes, Councilman President. Oh, sorry, we have.
No,
I'm sorry, Councilor Graves.
Okay. I was gonna comment on the same thing. I think we can get the technology. I just don't think we need, it's really 5 positions that we're talking about here, and I don't think we would need it. I talked to the president, some of this stuff should already be in place or should be covered by the money that we're going to get back from for all those Russian properties that we have allowed this law to be covered. So I think with that money we can upgrade, get better at whatever we're doing, and work with our colleagues and come up with a better plan, because I don't know if we actually need the high department at all.
So, I'd just like to thank all the directors obviously coming in, but, personally, like I said before, I'd like to hit the brakes a little bit. I mean, I don't think it matters, we're talking a week or 2, I'm not saying 6 months. And then the directors that came in here and said, you know, hey, we want to digest, but not against it. I didn't hear anything, any of the directors against what we put in. I just think this is a quick ordinance to be putting in. It's a very important ordinance, but I think you ought to tap the brakes and listen and collaborate with everybody and come up with a great ordinance that we can say, hey, this is what we passed, and there's no question back and forth. So with that, I think I make a motion to continue.
Is there a second? Okay, no second.
Motion to approve.
Second. Okay.
Can other people talk with this?
Well, this is, I'm sorry that this is not a public hearing, so we've asked the presenters to speak.
So you do a public hearing before you pass an ordinance?
We don't.
Not this council,
So the public can speak at this.
no, because when I asked the public hearing, that's why I said it's on our fast track. We've had a public hearing for people changing color of the hair.
And the motion on the table.
Okay.
Okay, the motion has been made by Councilor Sanchez, seconded by Councilor Ingersoll. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
So you.
Okay. And I'm sorry, it should be a motion as amended. We have a- How would you like to handle that?
And also, can I make the comments?
I think the amendments on there, and so it's been said that exists. I don't think we need that.
All right. Yes, with the, Councilor. Yeah, would like to.
No, I just want to say, I really do appreciate the directors coming here and the concerns that were brought in. I think this concern that we can work through together,
And just the comments, to put it on record, that I think with these couple of amendments, he personally already knows, because I think it's on a fast track. But also, we have litigation that is involved in the state law. And I asked the president if we could have our council at the bank to come to this meeting. Because we made some changes. I don't know what those changes, I don't feel comfortable, even if I didn't vote, I would vote no on that because if we're changing something, I would jeopardize our case, I don't know that. So I would rather hear from our council, and I hope we can reach out to the council here before it actually goes to the floor.
I'm sorry, don't you want to add another
I'm
side?
sorry, I'm sorry, Mr. Palino, I'm so sorry, but you're out of order. And,
I'm not part of your.
well, no, I understand that, but we
I
not.
thought you wanted to give sides, it would be helpful. That's what
I appreciate that, but we are not taking public testimony today. Thank you. And so the other thing I will say, just in response to Councilor Taylor, in terms of our attorney, we have hired an attorney with salary represents with regard to the bond case. You've not heard counsel for state law, municipal law, or anything else. So I do appreciate the fact that and I believe we have shared a copy with them. Just out of courtesy, but I do not think that it would be ever appropriate for them to come in.
I think the bounce it off, I had to get a test. It changed like well, I said, hey, we change one word, it could be different, so.
That is under the, this is going to be enacted now, we had the law in place. But chase that we all went through and I do not believe it should have this done at all, so I'm gonna disagree with that. But anyway, we have finished this item and we are now going to move on to the rest of our agenda, and so Madam Clerk, please, well, I'm going to say, agenda item 1, would you please read that?
I don't know, and on this is that and tax organization within for the property located at 166 Avenue Avenue.
Okay, this, we put it on because we thought that the, representative would be here, but he is not here tonight. I'm gonna ask for a motion to continue, but he will be here next Tuesday. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah. Can I speak on this? I know you're gonna continue it.
Well, what is it that you would like to say, because we are actually going to continue with this, or no, can you not have that next week?
I can, I just wanted to say.
Okay, go ahead.
The fact that it was just a coordination. That he had indicated that he could be, this week, I think he's gonna be, so it was posted on Saturday. Is that, so that way you don't, is that a strike on him or proposal? And that's at the same time, we also have the report. So, yeah.
We appreciate that, so we have a motion, okay, exactly. Oh, I'm sorry, the motion said, take our food. I made the mandate law, seconded by Council Gray, all in favor? I'm going to call opposed. Okay, we will hear that next week, I look forward to that. Now, agenda items 2 and 3, I will take 2 first, on Madam Clerk.
Item 2, an ordinance establishing a tax organization and for the property located at 132 Westminster Street.
Okay, we are going to, I need a motion to schedule this for a public hearing.
Second.
A motion made by Councilor Sanchez, seconded by Councilor Vanderwall, all in favor? All opposed. Okay, we have item number 3. We have a section 2. Okay, would you please read it into the record and then we'll stop.
Item 3, an ordinance establishing a tax organization and for the property located at 1832 Westminster Street.
Okay, on this, we have a substitute ordinance, and we also have that is being passed out and we have a fiscal note, but I will mark them separately. Oh, this, I don't know. Sorry, we're talking about, all right, we're just doing this on fiscal note. My apologies. We are going to mark this as exhibit. Or we did 3A, we're going to be exhibit 4, may I have a motion to substitute the fiscal note. Motion made by Councilor Amber, seconded by Councilor Sanchez, all in favor? All opposed. And so I would like to have a motion to schedule this for a public hearing, the amended ordinance. I have a motion. Okay, motion made to schedule a public hearing, made by Councilor Sanchez. And Amber Boss, seconded by Councilor Sanchez. All in favor? Aye. All opposed. And then I just might mention that we have a lot going on over the next month, so I understand that I do not, as best we can, I do not want to wait on too long. I don't want to postpone these until after we finish the budget. But I was, we've had some of these pending for a while, and I want to move them along, so whatever, it's like, yeah, we would like sooner than later. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we have, item number 5. Please read into the record.
Item 5, an ordinance to amend and remove charter articles and sections 176 of the code of ordinances for the city of Providence entitled the Department of Public Property and Subsequent Revenue Finance. Article 2, Division of Purchase Orders, Section 21-37, comparative bidding of the code of ordinances of the city of Providence.
Okay, and this week's Councilor Peterson, and I know that also we have, I know that our Aaron Gardner has also helped, so we would like to, I'm happy to speak on it briefly. Yes, please. In the interest of time. Thank you.
So, councilors, thank you very much for the opportunity. Do you have, I'm so sorry. You guys turn. Okay. Oh, sorry. Don't worry. So, as many, if you don't remember, it was 2 years ago. We all approved 11 ballot questions based on some amendments to the city charter. The questions were based on recommendations from the Charter Review Commission, and it included about 6 months of weekly meetings with city department heads and public input. This particular ballot question was, shall the purchase threshold be increased from $5,000 to $10,000 for regular purchasing and $20,000 for construction contracting? It was obviously passed by the voters, and so the in 2023, in January 2023, the law department opined that question 4 increased the small purchases caps and it would be taking effect. It took effect on November 22nd, 2022. There was no need for ratification by the General Assembly, and this increase is within the range already allowed by state law. As a technical matter, the Providence Home Rule Charter and the Providence Code of Ordinances should be updated to reflect this change. And the council implicitly amended this section by putting this question on the ballot, overriding the mayor's veto. So this is just actually creating ordinance around something that was already voted on by the voters. And we just wanted to make sure that we created ordinance for it.
And I would also thank you very much, and I appreciate what you're doing. I just want to make sure that we have, so I thought that our charter amendments were already included in the charter. So I understand we're trying to do the ordinance amendments, but I do need clarification as to whether we can do what we're doing here still. Because I still am hearing amending charter.
I thought a colleague of mine in the office full time that it was in conflict. I don't know. I know she reviewed it, but I didn't have a conversation with her today.
I'm sorry, Aaron, can you also help, please?
Yeah, certainly. I actually had with me here, and I probably should have submitted to the committee, but it was from Nick Poulos back in January of 23, where he shot the question around all the significance of the opinion of the department that it was just a technical piece and updating the code of ordinance in the proper way. But even if we were not to update it, the city is still able to move forward as such without it actually being written in the code. So this is just a technical cleanup. And I had this here. I can submit that.
And I know the shop was the one who I spoke to earlier in the week, and she did have a concern, but I didn't have a good conversation with her relative to that. to this being inconsistent with. And I think inconsistent, it achieved only in the charter, not be awarded. So that was my recollection, and I apologize, but she was unavailable all day to mediation tonight.
I understand. Okay, and I want to get this done because.
Right.
The second time, the first time we rejected it because it was a charter amendment, which didn't seem right. But yes, Councilor Ingersoll.
To Councilor Peterson, so this is just reflecting. So I understand, it's reflecting the charter sheet or nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is just amending our own ordinances, with the reflect what the village says.
Correct.
Okay, because my, like, the concern I had was that it said, something got amended in the local charter, and then into the local charter, and we're not doing that, there you have it, it's through the
Public process.
we just want our ordinances to reflect. Okay.
And just as a double
Yeah.
check with our director, that is correct, right?
Okay. Okay, so, now we seem to have, because you submitted the question to, and
Because I was just like, oh, it's the charter, but I think she, anyway, maybe she read the charter.
If the question is,
We can't change the charter, but that is what it is.
We can't change the charter, we can, there is a process.
Yeah,
That we could
that's-
do, but it requires a certain number of voters,
Yeah.
and that's not the process we're looking at.
I'm not thinking the
No,
ordinance.
we're just-
Yeah, I think the ordinance.
sorry,
that's right. Yeah, that counts.
this is actually just to update the ordinance to reflect what was already voted on by the voters back. in 2022.
Okay. And we do have a note, and I'm sorry, I didn't see this before, which was the shift. So here, certainly we can mark this. I don't think it's appropriate to mark it as an amendment. But we do have Nick, Poulos, is that correct? Weighing in earlier, so I think I want people to move forward with this, yeah. Do I have a motion? Motion to approve. Okay, motion is made by Councilor Ingeborg, seconded by Councilor Sanchez, all in favor? Aye, all opposed. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, the agenda, do we have anyone here to address item number 6? Talk about the disability.
Could I ask a question? Is this a member of local union 1033?
No, it's what I.
Firefighter, okay, because I talked to Ron Toy today, he was unaware that there was anything on this member.
So if I can just explain,
Yes.
so usually my boy will call me up and say, hey, you know, all these people, you know how to do it, and he's a sponsor.
Yeah.
This one has actually been in limbo for probably 3 weeks because we didn't know, I didn't know it was fire.
Oh,
So 1033 said it was there first, and it was, she didn't want to come, or it was, well, the union didn't want to come.
Typically, it's the applicant and someone from the union. And then if the committee will ask the chief or someone from the department to weigh in as to what their position. But
okay, so what is your preference, Councilman?
I'm gonna defer, and with that, sorry, Ken, what do you think, should we just pass this, and
I think it's inconsistent with your protocol.
we
If your protocol is you won't pass it, unless someone's here explaining why, and this committee usually prefaces them with a question, there's a, what was the wait, why did you delay? And then I think the committee is comfortable, so I would continue it, and we've done this on several occasions.
I'm sorry, I wasn't asking, I was asking.
the question. Yeah.
Or I was saying, all right, the motion made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Ingerball, all in favor, all opposed. Okay, with that, I think we've covered our agenda. Motion made by Councilor Ingerball, seconded by Councilor Taylor, all in favor. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, please. Huh?